Hey everybody, Sean back here for another E3 2011 live stage show demo. This time we're going to have a look at Lord of the Rings War in the North. I've got Michael DePlata here from Snowblind Studios here to show us the game. Michael, thanks a lot for coming by to show us War in the North.
My pleasure, thank you.
So you guys are, tell us about what sort of reaction that you've been getting as you've been showing off this game over the past, year or so, because it's quite a bit different from previous Lord of the Rings games.
Yeah.
It's a lot more brutal.
So yeah, that's been, fantastic, especially here at E3, because we've been able to make the game playable actually here and at PAX and so on. And once people get their hands on the game, it's fantastic to see just how much fun it is, how well the co-op works, and just having built the co-op in from the ground up. And what I think works really well is because you get different sorts of people coming to play it. There's RPG fans and action game fans. And where I think the game works really well is it's nailed the sweet spot between those two genres. It's actually a really good hack and slash action game,
right. And
it's got a really strong, deep RPG, loot, character progression, upgrade system as well.
All right, cool. Now, I believe we've got some video of the game that we are about to show. I'm not sure if we're able to do that just yet. But we will when we're ready, I can assure you guys. It's live internet television. There are some hurdles to overcome. Anyways, so let's talk about co-op. How does this co-op work in the game? Because obviously, this being Lord of the Rings, there's different creatures, different races, each with their own different abilities. Yeah. How have you gone about harmonizing these different people?
So the game's been built from the ground up for the co-op experience. So the three main characters, so Eridan, who's a ranger, Farron, who is a dwarven warrior, and Andriel, who's an elf. In a way, they really fit classic Lord of the Rings archetypes of the three hunters of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. But they also fit the really classic gameplay archetypes to start with, of kind of the tank and the rogue and the support class. But then what's really cool with the co-op is once you get into it, they've got these skill trees where you can actually develop each one of those characters, each one of those classes in very different directions. One of the nice things with our camera is we've got a good range combat system, so you can focus down that. So for example, with the Lawmaster, the elf, you can focus her towards a sort of third person, spell casting, shooting, and she works really well with that. Or you can specialize her towards staff and sword and kind of kick-ass melee class, or you can focus towards the support role and the spell casting in her sanctuary and so on. So we start off with these really, familiar archetypes from Lord of the Rings and from role-playing, but then we really let the players take the characters where they want to in terms of their own play style as well.
Now, in terms of, which parts of Middle-earth that players are going to be able to see, is this more or less the same terrain that, actually we've got the video going right here, it looks like. I think, hopefully, yes. Now, are these the same settings that we saw in the books and in the movies, or are you guys moving into like some of the unexplored regions?
It's one of the great things with War in the North is that it's absolutely not a movie game. So with Warner Brothers, we've got the rights to the Peter Jackson films, but we've also got the rights to Tolkien's work, to the written work. So it lets us certainly collaborate really closely with Peter Jackson and Weta on elements of the style and the characters and things they've created. But it also lets us create an original story set in Middle-earth as well, and get away from just following the movie plot. So hence the name, War in the North. Where in the past, we've seen Frodo's journey, and we've seen the southern front of the War on the Ring. Now it enables us to go to these completely new locations, new settings, and explore the other front in that war.
All right. Now, tell us about the characters that we're seeing in the video right here.
So, as I was saying, the three here, it's Farron, who's the dwarf, and Eridan, who's the ranger, and Andriel, who's an elf. They've been brought together by Elrond to create this fellowship in order to stop Agendaur. Agendaur is one of Sauron's chief lieutenants, and basically what he's doing, he's going to the lands of Middle-earth assembling these armies, which if he had have succeeded would have created this enormous force that would have swept down on the armies in Minas Tirith and even Helm's Deep and so on, and the war would have actually been lost even given Frodo's success and so on. So it's a kind of behind enemy lines commando's mission to prevent him in his quest from gathering these armies and these forces.
So Michael, whenever I play a co-op game, I tend to be the guy who's always running ahead a bit too quickly, the guy who's like a little bit too eager to jump into the next fight. How does your game sort of accommodate people like me, making sure that I don't mess up the entire team, and make sure that, you know, those other guys who are a little bit more cautious can still, you know, just not get killed right away like I am?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because the game, I mean, it's very much about the idea of fellowship.
Yeah.
So it's not a game about stealing kills or ripping off the other players or racing for loot. So for example, the loot, if you get a chest, that's instant. So everyone can get their loot out of that chest. Everyone can get their cool stuff and progress their character and share it with each other. But at the same time, it's also very much balanced, so it's work together or die as well. So if you are, I guess in some ways, you could almost say a little bit like Left 4 Dead, the balance of the game forces you, especially on the harder difficulties, it forces you to work together to survive and actually use the skills of all the three characters to support each other. So it's definitely designed and balanced to be challenging and to require you to work together, not even just staying together, but actually using your skills tactically so they support each other.
All right, one of our email questions here, James Letras, is wondering, you know, you mentioned that this is not a movie-based game, but is there any sort of crossover or, you know, allusions, winks and nods to the characters that from the movies and the books?
Yeah, very much. It's, you know, we're really in that great position of having the best of both worlds, so we can touch on the events of the movie and the War of the Ring in the South, but tell our own story at the same time. So in particular, there's a number of hubs, towns in the game. So there's Rivendell and Bree and so on. And when you get to those locations, you can meet, talk with, get quests from Aragorn, Gandalf, Elrond, a lot of the other characters from the movies. But then also, when you go off on your quest, it's an entirely new story as well.
Now, pretty similar question. I mean, we've covered a lot of the same sort of territory, but Michael James is wondering if he's never watched or read the books or the movies, is he going to feel okay just jumping straight into this? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, even like, you know, Snowblind has this fantastic history, this heritage of making kick-ass action RPGs back with, like, I love Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance and so on. So even just purely as a pick-up-and-play fantastic action RPG with really good combat, really good co-op, really good loot, good monsters, good enemies, great location, it looks really good. Just if you hadn't even seen Lord of the Rings, it's still just a great pick-up-and-play action RPG.
All right. Now, is this actually playable here at E3?
Yes. Yeah, we've got it set up on the floor, and it's all, you know, linked up, three-player co-op as well. So yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right. Let's see if we're getting any more questions here. We've got, let's see, Amir Mohsen from Cairo, who's pretty much sending us in half the questions that we've got at this point, is wondering, split screen co-op?
Yeah, and the cool thing is, so you can play split screen, so 2 players, same sofa, but you can also mix that up with the online as well. So you can play 2 players on the sofa, other player online, so you can mix and match any way you like.
All right, cool. Let's see what else we're getting. Calvin from Canada is wondering, are there any gameplay trailers available to watch yet? I believe you guys have released quite a few.
And on all sorts of subjects. Actually, one of the things the most recent one was about what we're thinking of as the 4th member of the Fellowship, which is Belaram, one of the Great Eagles. So he's actually an ally in your war against Agandau, and really kick-ass ally in combat. He can rip the heads off trolls, you know, throw orcs around, and also follows alongside you in the story as well.
All right. So we had some minor technical difficulties, but it looks like we've got it running here. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. So we can, yes. Is that on? I didn't know if I was, I can talk to the stuff that's on the screen. Oh, excellent. So we can see we've got the third-person combat, and the range works really well. It works really well with the melee. That's a big advantage of actually getting our camera and dropping it down into the action over the traditional kind of top-down 2D, you can see. And it breaks up and brings a lot of variety. These guys here, they're basically suicide bombers. So they're using kind of black powder, explosive weaponry to charge the players. So the best way to take them down is at distance as well. Oh, little achievement locked up there.
Got some
bit of ragdoll on the enemies. And that's one of the good things as well. So we can have There's about 45 different enemies in the game, so we can have a huge amount of variety as you progress, from these sort of goblins to big set-piece battles and sieges, through to dungeon crawls, through to going through forests and mirkwood, so massive amount of variety. And then we can see, so in the combat system here, you've got your light attacks, then the icon that builds up on the head there, it's a little bit inspired by Batman. If you pull your combos together, then you can pull off a critical hit. Then you go into what we call our heroic mode,
okay.
And that's when we can pay off on the mature rating, because we can start severing limbs, decapitations, big killing blows and so on. And also the longer you keep that going, the more it multiplies your experience bonus and your XP, so you can speed up the progression on your character. It's one of those things where on the melee combat and the gameplay, it's a really good moment-to-moment action game as well.
We've got one here wondering about drop-in and drop-out possibilities in co-op.
Yes.
Is that supported in the game?
Yeah, it is. So it's really, as I say, the game's built from the ground up for co-op, so you want players to be able to join at any time. I think if you drop into a match, you just wait. As soon as the players go through a checkpoint, then you're into the game. And the cool thing with that, with the drop-in, drop-out, is you bring your own character in, your own XP and so on. And then anything you earn in terms of experience, loot, so on, when you're playing online, you can bring that back to your own local game as well. So you can progress the story online with your friend, come back, carry on from that point in the story and so on.
We've got a question from Jared from Johannesburg, whose question is actually being answered on screen right here. He was wondering if there's any sort of skill progression in the game, and it looks like that's being displayed right at this very moment.
So, and the cool thing, so you can see the three columns that were up there as well with the skill progression. And the great thing is for any one of the characters, as I say, you can develop them along different paths. So Eridan here, who's the ranger, he can take more of a rogue-like path. You can upgrade, he's got evasive and stealth abilities and also ambush abilities, so he can come out of stealth and do a lot of damage. Also, within the melee combat, you can upgrade him towards specializing in two-handed weapons or in dual wielding, and then he's very effective with the bow, so you can upgrade him to specialize towards the range combat, sniping, headshots. So even within each of the three characters, there's a lot of different paths and choices you can take.
John Hernandez from Washington is wondering about is there any way that player choices affect the story and the outcome of the game?
So there are a couple of points in the story where decisions you take in combat do have some different consequences. Mostly what we've focused on is making a really strong cinematic co-op experience, like 12-hour campaign, in which you can also, as you unlock the hubs and you unlock the world of Middle-earth, you can go back and revisit places you visited earlier for loot and so on as well. So the story itself is linear, but then we're unlocking the world so you can revisit and travel around in it.
Okay. All right, we continue to, this same guy, John Hernandez from Washington, is wondering if you can explain the loot system a bit. He's wondering how extensive the loot system is.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So Snowblind is really one of the pillars of all of their earlier games as well. There's literally, actually the inventory was up before, but there's literally thousands of different items of loot, and all the equipment that you gain, you can see equipped on the character's body. So there's a lot of progression through the course of the game. There's also slotting as well. You can find elf stones which can be slotted to modify the properties of different weapons and other different items as well. And also some weapons, sometimes of loot are specific to the different characters, so staffs can only be used by the elves, so you're able to give and trade and share items online with the loot as well.
Right. Nicholas from Argentina is wondering, well, his first question, yes, the game will have multiplayer. It's an online co-op, but he's also wondering, we're seeing the Xbox 360 version here. He's wondering if it's going to be on PlayStation 3 as well.
Yep, so it's Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC.
Okay, so definitely some choice out there for anybody who owns multiple systems. Let's see what kinds of questions that we're getting here.
So we can see here, this is we're actually coming up to one of the final battles of this level, which is a good chance to show off Belaram and his skills in combat as well. And actually also here we can see the loot. So you can see the feathers, for example, are what you can use to order the great eagles. The elf stones are things that you can slot. There's one of the things that is quite cool with the exploration and the loot is, as well as having different combat skills, the different characters can explore the world in different ways. So the ranger, he's a tracker. He can find paths and so on in the wilderness that'll lead you to different secrets and loot. The dwarf has basically got a good knowledge of structural and engineering, so he can sometimes see things that are breakable in the world that the other characters can't see, so find paths to so on. And the elf, she's able to gather and craft items in the environment, herbs and so on. So it's not only within the combat, but also within the exploration of the world and the story that the co-op comes into play as well, and working towards the loot. Oh, there we go. And then we can see that's Belaram as well. So he's like super effective in combat. And then the other thing we can see here is the ability that we're able to bring in characters from Tolkien's books that haven't maybe been very fleshed out. So Elladan and Elra here, who are the two elven princes they're Elrond's sons. They're kind of two of the most badass warrior elves in Middle-earth. And they're referenced in the books, but we haven't actually, really seen them explored in either the books or the movies and so on. So whereas in the game, we can bring them into the story, fight alongside them, actually, really have them become part of the game. And that happens the same throughout the game, as well as with the Great Eagles, as well as with the Dwarves. Radagast, who's one of the wizards who's referred to, along with Gandalf and Saruman, but hasn't been seen before. So it's really great to be able to be in that position of being able to have the familiar stuff, but also take people to explore new places in Middle-earth as well.
All right, Michael, well, the game looks like a lot of fun. I'm going to have to try to find some time to drop by and play a little bit of it on the show floor. Before I let you go, when is War in the North going to be out in stores?
It's coming out this year. I think I'm not allowed to get more specific than that. Or
this year, that'll work.
Yeah, that's
that'll
it.
Work. Specific enough. And as you mentioned, 360, PS3, PC?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was Lord of the Rings War in the North. Now let's go check out what else is happening here at E3 2011.
Trade in a game, get a gift card, get anything you want.